Hello, good morning. I'm coming from the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Vinny Motiwala. With me is Vamakshi Doria. You all have tuned in to CNBC TV18. You all are watching Power Breakfast with us. Good morning, Vamakshi. We're watching out for an interesting week, especially on the Asia front. A lot of data points that will be coming as well.
Well, absolutely, Vinny. An action-packed week, just like the one that we saw last time around. And, last week was exceptional, right? We saw a fabulous run, up 4% for both the Nifty as well as sensex. But let's see what this week holds. Then let's get started with the top headlines.
Absolutely. Starting with the top headlines for today and starting on the global front, we have the US futures that have fallen after Moody's downgraded its investment grade rating, ramping up concerns over slowing economic growth and heightened debt levels. While the US market closed in a positive territory on Friday, with Dow erasing all 2025 losses and S&P 500 scoring a fifth straight day of gains after trade war tensions eased.
Stocks in the Asia-Pacific region open mixed as investors digest Japan's latest GDP figures. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a flat start for the Indian market.
Oil prices hold steady after posting a second consecutive weekly gain due to easing US and China trade tensions, while gold bounces back after its biggest weekly decline in 6 months, with appetite for haven assets boosted by mounting concerns about the US economic outlook and budget deficit.
India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri will brief a parliamentary committee led by Committee Chairman and Congress MP Shashi Tharoor on the developments with Pakistan, which were marked by India striking terror sites in Pakistan, followed by days of intense conflict between the two countries before they agreed to stop military actions.
On that note, first let's look at what the Asian market is doing this morning. How has that opened up? Now, Asian markets as of now have opened up in the red. What we're seeing coming in is a bit of a red across the screen. Taiwan index is down 0.8%. Hang Seng is down 0.1% as well. And we're watching out for a lot of data points that will be coming out in Asia this week as well. So that is something that is keeping the Asia market under the check as well. We have China data points coming out today. Other than that, Moody's downgrade, the US credit rating. Vamakshi, that's something that is weighing a bit more in terms of the Asian markets as well. Let's look at the Nifty implied open. It's indicating a very muted start for the Indian markets, down 18 points. So we could expect that negative bias coming for the Indian markets as well. But the Moody's downgrade, that's what everyone is keeping an eye out on now, how we're going to be reacting to that.
Well, absolutely. When Moody's has downgraded the US sovereign credit rating on Friday to AA1 from AAA, bringing the rating one notch lower from its highest rating. Moody's cited concerns over the country's growing debt pile, which could be further impacted by President Trump's plan to cut taxes. Moody's also raised concern about Trump's administration, which touted several measures to bring down government spending and debt levels.
Okay, and meanwhile, the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has dismissed the rating downgrade. Listen in to his comments coming in on that front.
That Moody's is a lagging indicator. I think that's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. Larry Summers and I don't agree on everything, but he said that when they downgraded the U.S. in 2011. So it's a lagging indicator. And just like Sean Duffy said with our air traffic control system, we didn't get here in the past 100 days. It's the Biden administration and the spending that we have seen over the past 4 years. We inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, the highest when we weren't in a recession, not in a war, and we are determined to bring the spending down and grow the economy.
Well, let's also listen in to opinions coming in from John Woods of Lombard Odier on the downgrade by Moody's.
I don't think it could be interpreted as a positive message, but at the same time, I do struggle to identify a catalyst which prompted the actual downgrade. I don't think the quantum of debt in the United States is new news right now, so we do thank Moody's for pointing it out. But my sense is that by bringing that rating flat to the other major agencies, there's a degree of consistency at the ratings level. But there's no new news, and I don't think that, frankly, markets will spend too much time stressing about this. There's vastly more important issues at play right now, and the actions of a rating agency is the least of them.
And Wall Street ended higher on Friday as Dow Jones gained 332 points, S&P 500 inched up 41 points, and tech-heavy Nasdaq gained nearly 18 points. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were up across the major indexes in Friday trading, with the S&P 500 rallying to a 5-day win streak. The Dow climbing 332 points, the S&P was up 41, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 99 points. Meantime, a pair of mega deals in the communications sector Friday. Two of the largest cable companies in the U.S., Cox Communications and Charter Communications, have agreed to merge. The combined company would take on the Cox name and sell consumer services under the Spectrum brand within a year of the deal closing. Of course, that deal still needs to win antitrust approval. Meantime, the FCC announced that it is approving Verizon's $20 billion deal to buy Frontier Communications after Verizon reportedly agreed to end its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Consumers are growing less confident in the economy. The University of Michigan's latest survey showed consumer sentiment dropping to 50.8 this month. That is the second lowest reading on record, only behind June 2022, when inflation hit 9%. However, most of the survey was completed before the White House announced a 90-day pause on the highest tariffs.
Thank you so much for that. But that's all the overnight action, global market action that we have for you all coming in this morning. How is this going to be impacting our Indian markets? We have a team of research joining in with us as always to set you up for trade, tell you which are the important stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. First up, let's go across to Vivek, who's here to tell us what are we watching out for in terms of the market cues. What should we be expecting in terms of an opening for the Indian market? Good morning, Vivek.
Well, good morning. Absolutely right. Well, talking about overnight cues, US markets ended largely higher. But one particular development over the weekend that might sour the sentiment is the fact that Moody's went ahead and downgraded the US credit rating. And the Asian markets have taken a bit of a slightly negative cue on the back of this particular development. You know, the US futures on Sunday too saw a bit of a sell-off. Now, talking about oil prices actually gained over 1% on Friday. Brent gained over 1.3% and now trading and hovering around the $65.4 a barrel mark. Well, Indian markets actually enjoyed a spectacular rally the week gone by. Both the Nifty as well as the Bank Nifty actually saw a rally of over 4% each, and this was aided by very strong FI flows, especially that have started resuming in the second half of this particular month itself. The mid-cap index and the small-cap index actually outperformed. The mid-cap index gained 7% in the week gone by. On Friday, however, the markets, the benchmark indices ended largely flat, but the outperformance from the broader end of the markets continued. The mid-cap index continued to trade with significant gains, and which thereby ensured that the advanced decline ratio was very strong. What did very well? Well, you couldn't look beyond the different stocks, especially in the week gone by. Last 6-7 trading sessions, there's been continuously on an upswing. Today, they will continue to remain in focus. Results of HAL, the stock will react to that. Also, results of BEL is scheduled today. You saw a couple of large blocks, that actually impacted the FI flow figures. So you saw Bharti Airtel as well as JSW Infra. Both of these blocks transpired on the trading session of Friday. Looking into today, number one, quite a few results continue, and Asian markets as well as GIFT Nifty indicating a flat to slightly muted start for our own markets today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Vivek. 17-point downtick is what the GIFT Nifty is indicating as of now. But now over to Upasna, who will list out the stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Upasna.
Good morning, Vamakshi. First up, let me start with Divi's Lab Company has reported a good set of numbers, beat on margins and profit to our poll. Net profit was up 23% and margins stood at 34.3% versus 31.7%. And mind you, we were working with a poll estimate of 31.9%. Now, Amber Enterprises, again, a good set of numbers. Q4 revenue was a beat. Strong growth contributed by 74% growth in the company's electronics segment and 28% in consumer durables. Revenue saw an uptick of 34%, EBITDA margin stood stable at 7.9%, and PAT saw an uptick of 20% on a YoY basis. Galaxy Surfactants is the next one on our radar. Decent growth amid a challenging environment. Now, revenue saw an uptick of 23%, EBITDA margins 11.1% versus 10.9%, and PAT saw a downtick of 2%. Next up is Delivery. Overall, company has reported a good operational performance. Profit stood at 73 crores versus a loss of 68 crores, and revenue saw an uptick of nearly about 6% on a YoY basis. Premier Energies also saw a strong set of numbers, and company has announced aggressive capex for capacity expansion targets for FY28. Revenue saw an uptick of 44% on a one-year basis, and margins stood at 32.6 versus 16.4. And company has also said that it has a total estimated capex of 1,250 crore. BEL is the next one on our counter. On the back of the order win, the company secures additional orders worth 572 crore since 7th of April. DRL will also be in focus as US FDA has issued Form 482 with 2 observation for company's API Middleburg facility in New York. KC International will also be in focus on the back of additional order wins worth 1,100 crores. And lastly, GSK Pharma will also be in focus as fire incidents has occurred at a contract manufacturing facility of the company. Hence, operations are halted temporarily. So, all in all these are the key stocks in focus on our radar today.
Okay, Upasana, thank you so much for that. But finally, Mangalam is also waiting by to tell us what's going to be happening in the world of FNO this morning. What are we watching out for? Good morning, Mangalam.
Good morning. There was a sharp rise that we saw on Thursday. Thereafter, there was consolidation that was expected on Friday, and that's exactly what took place if you look at the frontline indices. But typically, after a big move, we have consolidation on the front line, but it's the mid-tier stocks that see a big move, and that's what we saw in broader markets. Nifty Next 50 up 1.5%, Nifty Mid-Cap Index up around 1%, Small Cap Index up 2% as well. If you look at the cash market flows, you'd be a little flattered to deceive. We had 5,000 crores buying from the DIIs, 8,800 crores by the FIs. But remember, this was a function of a couple of large trades that took place on Friday. We had Bharti Airtel and we had JSW Infra as well. So all of that is impacted in the cash market flows. What you need to look at is index futures. After a big purchase in the previous trading session, the FIs unwound some long positions. They sold about 1,800 crores in index futures and they added mild shorts. So if you look at it, on May 14, the FI short exposure was 62%, long exposure 38%. The next day there was short covering rally. It jumped all the way up to 46% on the long exposure and now just moderated down to about 42 odd percent itself. 25,000 remains the fulcrum for our market. 25,000 call writers fairly active for a premium of 200 rupees. Put writers equally active for a premium of around 150 rupees. So put these together, you're looking at a premium of roughly 350 rupees, and 350 points on either side is what we're looking at on the Nifty in terms of a broad range. For the Nifty Bank, it's the 20-day moving average where it took support and bounced back from, and that remains an important support on the way down as well. Just keep an eye out on T-Target Wagons. It's entered FNO ban, and CDSL on Friday exited FNO ban.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mangalam. But let's slip into a very short break. Up next, we get you latest updates on the Operation Sindoor and the India-Pakistan situation. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, and you're tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Now let's keep it going, and in some national updates coming in for you all. Amidst the ongoing Operation Sindoor against Pakistan, the Defence Acquisition Council grants the Indian Armed Forces to procure necessary artillery under emergency procurement. Parikshit is joining you with us to give us more details on this front. Good morning, Parikshit.
Yes, this is going to be an important order for loitering munitions, counter UAV systems, anti-tank guided missiles as well, and other artillery shells for the Indian Army. So these orders will be both for the Air Force, the Army, and also for the Navy. The Vice Chiefs have been empowered to go in for emergency procurements. Now, as far as the emergency procurement budget goes, it is 15% of the defense modernization budget. So for FY26, the defense modernization budget was around 1,60,000 crore. So therefore, the upper limit of this acquisition that will be done under emergency provisions would be around 24 to 25,000 crores. We're told that the actual expenditure for this year may be lesser because deliveries have to be assured within a one-year period. But it remains to be seen how much is procured. According to certain industry estimates, we've been speaking to a number of people in the industry, and they tell us that the Defense Ministry, the services have drawn up a list of procurement of at least 39,000 to 40,000 crore worth of equipment. However, government sources whom we've been in touch with, they said that upper limit for the procurement is 24,000 crores. The actual numbers will be lesser because the deliveries have to be made within 1 year. But it is clear that within the next 40 to 40 days to 6 months, we are going to see a lot of procurements being made by the three services, and this is going to be a positive for certain defense companies.
Well, thank you so much for that, Parikshit. We'll definitely be keeping an eye out on all of those defense counters in today's trading session as well. But let's in fact also listen into defense industry leaders and their take on the government's push for defense sector.
With the policies that the Honorable Prime Minister put into place for the last, let's say, 10 years in the area of defense, and all enabled by our Honorable Defense Minister and the whole user industry collaborative effort that is going on between industry, DRDO, and the users, that is the services, we are all moving forward at a very rapid pace. I mean, there are a lot of things that you don't see that are happening in industry, but I can tell you and assure you that we are moving forward at extremely rapid pace, and this is not only good for our defense, but is also good for our overall economic and industrial development.
Air defense is something that we are looking at quite strongly. We have been associated with the Akash program, and many of the ground equipment for the Akash we are involved with. We are looking at close-in weapon systems, given the thrust on drone warfare. So we have our own close-in weapon systems, which we are now contracted with the Air Force for. And that's one area that we would like to scale up and speed up.
And sky is the limit for Indian defence stocks after Operation Sindoor showcased the might of Made in India arsenals. Top companies, including PSUs, private players, have added over 1.5 lakh crore rupees to their market capitalization since May 7th, with their stock gaining anywhere between 15 to 40%. My colleague Surbhi Upadhyay joins us now. Surbhi, is self-reliance now the war cry now?
Operation Sindoor has literally announced the coming of age of the Indian defense manufacturing ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem that has a lot of private sector players and, of course, the big PSU giants. Let me start by telling you about some of the weapon systems that were deployed in Operation Sindoor. We're talking about, of course, the missiles, the medium-range surface-to-air missiles, MRSAMs as they're called. Bharat Dynamics is a very key player here, not only when it comes to manufacturing these missiles, but it's a full systems integrator, and it played a huge part. The Akash weapon system, which we all know, which was critical in Operation Sindoor. This is a weapon system that has suppliers, across a long supply chain. So when it comes to the outer shell, it was manufactured by a company called Paras Defense. When we're talking about the warheads and the initiating systems, then Solar Industries was the name that was in play. And once again, Bharat Dynamics was the key systems integrator over here. The Nagastra loitering munitions, this was a war that was fought in the sky with drones, and the anti-drone systems came into play as well. And here, Nagastra 1 and 2, which is what Solar has been manufacturing, that was, in key play. I want to talk about some numbers as well, the size of the opportunity in the industry. The projected estimated output by the Indian defense sector for FY25 is 1.75 lakh crore rupees. That number is expected to swell, or was expected to swell, to 3 lakh crore rupees by FY29. But a lot of analysts that we've been speaking to say that these targets will be hit much earlier now because the production is being ramped up, because companies are running on double and in some cases triple shifts. So all of this is getting accelerated. 193 contracts signed by the Ministry of Defense in FY25, and a whopping 92% of those actually went to domestic suppliers. By value, this is number of contracts. By value, 80% of the contracts by value actually went to local manufacturers. So that's really saying something about the extent of our Atmanirbharta. I just want to quickly talk about some of the names here. Many of them you already know. Bharat Dynamics, like I said, when it comes to missile systems, and it's right up there. It's also a key systems integrator. BEL, when it comes to defense communication and electronics. It's a big player in of course, in the Akash new age weapon system, land-based radars, naval systems, tanked armored vehicles, and all the electronic systems that go there. BEL plays a part. HAL needs no introduction, whether it's the Su-30s or the other aircraft. It recently won a massive order, HAL, 62,700 crore rupee order for the light combat aircraft. that it will deliver both to the Indian Air Force as well as to the Army. And then, of course, Masgao Dock, Garden Reach Shipbuilders, Cochin Shipyard, the frigates, the destroyers, the corvettes, all of them being manufactured locally right here in India. But it's not just the PSUs. The private sector players are really, notching up the game as well. Of course, there are giants like Tata Advanced Systems, which are, into a range of weapon systems, whether it's launchers, artillery, gun systems for the Akash surface-to-air missile systems. There's also the, advanced towed artillery gun systems, the ATAGS as it's called. And of course, a range of other optronics, radars, etc. Solar industries, like I mentioned, when it comes to warheads and bombs, then this is a key emerging player. In fact, whether you talk about missile systems like, BrahMos or many of the others, the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launchers, Solar is a big player in a lot of these projects, and it's a big supplier. Astra Microwave, big name when it comes to radars and electronic, warfare systems. And then there is Paras Defense as well. Again, the rocket and missile programs, warfare, surveillance, naval systems, tanks, and armored vehicles. This is not a fully exhaustive list, by the way. There are many other companies, many other SMEs as well. But the entire ecosystem, when it comes to defense, self-reliant manufacturing, indeed thriving now in India.
Well, thank you so much for that, Surbhi. Now, moving on, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and a team of senior Indian officials are in Washington for discussions with their US counterparts on the proposed bilateral trade agreement. Abhimanyu Sharma joins us now. Abhimanyu, take us through what we can expect from the Commerce Minister's Washington visit.
India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal is in the United States, where he's going to meet the US Commerce Secretary and the US Trade Representative. Government sources have indicated that the political level meetings are going to assess the developments between both the countries with respect to the talks which have taken place since the past 2 months for a potential bilateral trade agreement which both the countries intend to sign. Also, the ministerial meetings intend to provide some political steer to the discussions which are going to be held after the ministerial level meetings, since India's negotiating team led by Chief Negotiator Rajesh Agrawal is also headed to the US, and from the 19th to the 22nd of May they are going to hold talks with their American counterparts. It remains to be seen what all is going to be on the table. Of course, issues pertaining to goods are going to be discussed for the first tranche of a bilateral trade agreement. It remains to be seen whether issues like technical barriers to trade or even non-tariff barriers are going to figure in the discussions, even as both the countries intend to utilize the window of opportunity between the 90-day pause which has been effected on the announcement of tariffs by the United States till the 9th of July.
Thanks so much for that. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. Up next, we'll get you the cues from the world of commodities, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. As promised, we now have Manisha Gupta joining us with all the updates from the commodity market. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, and thank you for that. I'll start with the gold prices, where after steepest fall in 6 months and a 3% decline in the previous week, we have seen some gains come back in case of gold. This is because Moody's has cut U.S. credit rating from AAA to AA1, and the U.S. consumer sentiment also has declined, the most near record lows, by the way, and this is a fifth monthly decline, and that really seems to be supporting gold prices yet again. Not just gold, but silver is trading on a firmer note. We also have copper prices trading firm. The short-term truce between U.S., China, and the fact that China is buying a lot of copper, producing record refined numbers as well. But copper concentrate imports into China have surged quite strongly for the month of May, have been supportive as well. If you look at the crude oil prices, well, here as well, after 2% of gains in the previous week and a second weekly gain, we are looking at crude oil prices also holding firm, the gains from the previous week. Well, the possible U.S.-Iran nuclear deal is something that the street will watch out for. And the other thing is the IEA report, which says that the supply surplus in 2025 could be because of higher OPEC output. So the statement that would come in from OPEC on 5th of June is something that the street will keep an eye on. In the meanwhile, the strength in U.S. dollar is also supporting markets. So across sector, we are looking at most of these commodities trading in the positive.
Well, thank you so much for that, Manisha. Now, moving on to some updates from the world of sports. India's golden boy, Neeraj Chopra, crosses a landmark milestone at the Doha Diamond League, reaching the 90-meter mark in javelin for the first time with a throw of 90.23 meters. However, despite his personal best, the athlete had to settle for the second position after Julian Weber stole the show with a throw of 91 meters.
Okay, that's all the time we have on this edition of Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, your Bazaar Morning Call.